Hey there, me again. Today's video is going to be a fun one for me and hopefully an interesting one for you because today we're going to be talking about photography cliches. So, I've been doing photography for a long time now, and I've been doing mostly film photography for my personal work for over a year at this point. And something I've noticed online is there's a lot of like joking and people who I think aren't really joking about cliches in photography and film photography specifically. So, some photography cliches in the film community that I hear all the time are vintage cars, gas stations, and basketball hoops. So, I think today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about photography cliches and why I think they're not necessarily so bad and maybe even useful. So let's talk about why things become cliche or overdone. So the first reason I can think of that something would become a cliche or become an overdone photography subject is it has a kind of unifying force. So let's take a basketball hoop, for example. Now, basketball is a worldwide sport at this point and has tons of fans, tons of people who love to play competitively and recreationally, and basketball is something that I think brings a lot of people together. And the hoop itself is enough of a subject that a lot of people are going to take pictures of it. Now, another reason I can think of that something might become a cliche is it might have this inherent beauty or pull or symbolism behind it that just draws people to it. So, an example of this that I can think of would be the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge is something that's been photographed millions of times at this point, and if you type in the Golden Gate Bridge on Google or on Instagram, or you just type in San Francisco in general, you're going to get a lot of photos that are taken in the exact same places. So you're getting a lot of the exact same photo, and I think that's because people, when they think of San Francisco or they think of the Bay Area in general, the Golden Gate Bridge is a symbol of that. So if you travel to San Francisco, which is a popular travel destination, you want to kind of capture that symbol of that area. Not to mention, that bridge is an iconic piece of architecture and design and engineering from the early 1900s. I haven't personally been to San Francisco myself, but I can tell you that if I went, one of the first things I'd want to do is take that picture myself, even though it's been taken millions of times. It's not going to be necessarily something I take for the world to see, but it's something I would take just to have that little like inner win for myself. So I think one reason that photography cliches are actually a good thing is photography cliches are a good thing to use to really challenge yourself. So if you think about it, if something's been photographed over and over and over again in the same way by a bunch of different people, then that makes it even more of a challenge to find a unique view or unique angle or unique composition of this thing that's been over photographed. So let's take the basketball hoop example again. And I think if you have delved into film photography, you probably know the angle of a basketball goal that you've seen on repeat, taken a million different times by a million different people. But if you go and try and photograph a basketball hoop in a different way, that could lead you to find some cool ways to experiment with shadows and shapes and compositions, and it would just be a really good exercise for you to do to practice your photography. Another reason I think photography cliches aren't so bad is I think they can be used to really help you get out of a creative rut or creative slump. So, I think if you're a creative person, you work in a creative field, you know how easy it is to get swamped and just kind of lose momentum and just fall into one of these creative slumps. And one of the best ways to get out of these slumps is to just do something that's easy and get yourself out there and get working and just kind of rebuild that creative mentality that you have. And one really easy thing to take pictures of is something that may be photographed a lot by a lot of different people, or something that you think you photograph a lot in your own work. And it's just a really good way to get out there and get yourself going, get into a creative flow, and then hopefully that can lead you to some more novel ideas going forward. So, the last thing I'll leave you guys with today is you don't really know the reasoning behind a photographer's work unless you ask them yourself and you hear it firsthand from the artist. So, maybe if you think something's cliche, maybe just kind of keep it to yourself and see if you can dive a little bit deeper into that particular photographer's work and find more meaning behind it. I can give you guys an example myself. Um, I don't really get a lot of those kind of critiques on my work online and stuff to this point yet. But I am self aware enough to know that I take a lot of photos of vintage cars. And I think one reason behind that is because of my dad. Now, I lost my dad a couple of years back, and he was a huge car nut. And me being his son, I picked up on that, and I became a car fanatic as well. And some of my earliest memories are of me and him in the car, and him pointing at cars that were coming towards us on the highway, and me being a 4-year-old kid being able to rattle off all of the car manufacturers that were coming at us. So I think the reason I photograph a lot of old cars is not only because I like the designs, but because it makes me feel closer to my dad. That's about all I've got for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it useful. I hope it gave you some new kind of ideas about photography and photography cliches. If there's anything you think I didn't talk about, go ahead and leave it down in the comments, and I'm sure there will be tons of interesting conversations down there. See you next time. Bye now.